The distress signal was ancient, at least by galactic standards. It looped every 9 standard cycles, barely more than a whisper through subspace. Most empires ignored it, assuming it was the death cry of a long-lost colony swallowed by one of the void anomalies in sector Zeta Delta 17. But the coalition of peaceful systems didn't ignore things. Not anymore. After a decade of war with the Carthuan swarm, spurred by a misunderstanding no one could even remember, they had learned the cost of silence. When the signal chirped again on a listening post orbiting Svalin 4, it took only 30 minutes for the High Council to convene. 30 minutes more to issue a response. The recorded plea was chilling. In broken galactic basic, tinged with static and trembling syllables, the voice said, "Help us, please. They're everywhere. We can't. We need humans." At first, everyone thought it was a mistake. Humans? Extinct. Lost. Vanished into the black over 200 cycles ago after the collapse of their last known planetary confederation. And even before that, they had barely registered on anyone's diplomatic radar. Brutal, primitive, often reckless, but oddly effective when given a problem to solve. The phrase, "as mad as a human engineer," had passed into galactic idiom. Ambassador Hrelos of the Centauri Order leaned forward from his floating podium. "This is impossible. How could a remote colony know of humans, let alone request them by name?" Counselor Ferrum clicked his mandibles in irritation. "It doesn't matter. The signal mentions humans. The rest of the message implies systemic failure. We should send help." Silence. Then murmurs. Then the inevitable. A vote. 37-3. Motion passed. But who to send? The galaxy's most elite rescue units had already been scattered across the spiral arm, dousing fires started by the still ongoing Carthuan insurgencies. What they needed wasn't just elite. They needed insane. Someone whispered, "The Black Vault." Gasp. No one had dared open it in over 100 cycles. Not since the incident on Tau 47, where a single human operative turned a bioweapon outbreak into a full-blown planetary detonation just to make sure the virus stayed dead. The vault wasn't so much a prison as it was containment. And in its icy chambers slept 10 of the most unpredictable, lethal human assets ever recorded by galactic agencies. The few who'd seen them in action described the experience like surviving a supernova in a test tube. They called them the Iron 10. 10 names etched in red across intelligence files that had been scrubbed, encrypted, then scrubbed again. War criminals. Heroes. It depended who you asked. Either way, they were humanity's final export, and the Council just decided to unbox them. Deep orbit, Vault-class cryo-carrier Oblivion's Cradle. "Begin thawing sequence," said Commander Illith, her voice steady, even though her tendrils were twitching in visible discomfort. "Which one?" asked her technician, who was already sweating under the frost-streaked interface. "We can't wake them all." She turned, slow and deliberate, her 3 eyes locking on the line of cryo-chambers lined like tombs. Each was labeled with just a code name. She pointed to the first. "Reaper." The tank hissed. Ice turned to steam. Red lights bathed the chamber. A heartbeat. 2. Then a cough. Then the eyes opened. He didn't speak immediately. Just stepped out, tall, gaunt, skin marked with ancient tactical tattoos that glowed faintly under the chamber lights. No visible weapons. But the threat radiated from him like gravity. The technician recoiled, instinctively shielding his throat. Commander Illith cleared hers. "We've received a distress signal. A colony called Virex Prime. We need a response team. Fast." Reaper blinked. "What? You want the Iron 10? Illith swallowed. "Just you for now." He stared at her long enough to make her question the air in her lungs. Then slowly Reaper cracked his knuckles and said, "Wake Ghost next." The technician's fingers trembled over the console. "You sure? She still thinks she's in the war. The old war. We tried waking her once. She bit the medic." Reaper smirked. "Sounds like she's ready." The next tank hissed. Then the nightmare began. Elsewhere, Virex Prime. The colony had been a model of peace for generations. Self-sustaining, post-violence society, AI-governed, nutrient-balanced. And then the sky cracked open. No one saw what hit them. The sky wasn't supposed to bleed. One moment they were celebrating the new solar garden, and the next an entire quadrant of the colony's dome vaporized. Then came the harvesters. Machines? Beasts? No one could say. They moved like thought, consumed like acid, and grew more aggressive with every kill. Emergency shelters collapsed in minutes. Civil defense AI crashed within the hour. By the second day, only a few thousand remained in hiding. And every one of them repeated the same words. They need to send humans. No one remembered why that phrase survived. Only that it had. The myths were always the same. Somewhere long ago, a human had landed during a trade mission, stopped a natural disaster with nothing but a wrench, caffeine, and what one witness described as utter lunacy. He left behind nothing but a burned crater and a single note. If things get really bad, like end of days bad, just ask for us. Now they had. And now, help was coming. Back on the cradle. With Reaper and Ghost awake, Illith watched the second tank disengage. Out stepped a woman, barefoot, expression calm, dressed in what appeared to be old Earth sleepwear and a belt full of knives. Why the hell did you wake me? Reaper answered with a nod. Reckon it's showtime. She glanced at Illith, then at the walls. Same song, different dance. The alarms didn't wait. A new signal arrived, this one not a distress call but a real-time scream. They've breached the medical ward. We're out of shielding. Please, someone, they're taking the children. Ghost's eyes turned sharp. We roll now. Council headquarters, 30 minutes later. Are you mad? Barked Counselor Ferrum. You woke two of them? Illith's projection didn't flinch. Sir, we have confirmation. Children are being harvested. The enemy is adaptive, biomechanical, unlike anything we've classified. We either send the worst humanity has to offer, or we mourn another colony. Pause. Then Ferrum sighed. Who's next? Illith looked at the list, then smiled. Time to wake Ashes. The cryo chamber hissed open, releasing a plume of cold vapor that curled around the figure within. Ashes stepped out, her eyes glowing with a faint, unnatural light. Her presence was both commanding and unsettling, a testament to the modifications that had been made to her physiology. Commander Illith watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Ashes was not just a soldier, she was a weapon forged in the crucible of humanity's darkest wars. Mission parameters? Ashes inquired, her voice devoid of emotion. Illith briefed her on the situation at Virex Prime, detailing the mysterious harvesters and the colony's plea for human intervention. Understood, Ashes replied, turning to Reaper and Ghost. Let's finish what we started. The trio boarded their transport, the Oblivion's Cradle, and set course for Virex Prime. As they approached the planet, they could see the devastation from orbit. Cities reduced to rubble, fires raging unchecked, and the telltale signs of harvester activity. Upon landing, they were met with a scene of chaos. Survivors huddled in makeshift shelters, their eyes filled with fear and desperation. The humans' arrival sparked a glimmer of hope, but also uncertainty. We're here to help, Reaper announced, his voice cutting through the silence. But we need information. A local leader stepped forward, explaining that the harvesters had emerged from the planet's core, attacking without warning and adapting to every defense mounted against them. Then we adapt faster, Ghost said, her eyes narrowing. The team split up to assess the situation and formulate a plan. Ashes ventured into the underground tunnels, seeking the source of the harvester infestation. Reaper coordinated with the colony's remaining defense forces, while Ghost analyzed the harvesters' attack patterns. As Ashes delved deeper, she encountered a massive chamber filled with pulsating organic matter, a harvester nest. She planted charges and retreated, detonating them to collapse the structure. The explosion sent shockwaves through the planet, disrupting harvester activity on the surface. Meanwhile, Reaper and Ghost led coordinated strikes against the disoriented harvesters, pushing them back and reclaiming territory. The tide of battle began to turn. Reddit. After days of relentless combat, the team succeeded in driving the harvesters back into the depths from which they came. The colony was saved, but at great cost. As the survivors began to rebuild, they looked to the humans with gratitude and reverence. The legends of humanity's power and resilience had proven true. Reddit. Remember this day, Ashes told the colonists. Not because we came to save you, but because you stood and fought alongside us. With their mission complete, the Iron 10 prepared to return to their slumber, ready to be awakened when the galaxy once again called upon humanity's most dangerous. The Iron 10 didn't sleep. Not this time. Not when Ashes stood at the edge of a cliff on Virex Prime's scarred surface, staring at the abyss where she had once detonated a harvester nest, only for it to reopen 2 days later, wider than before. The harvesters had returned, but this time they were no longer just machines. They were evolving. And they had learned. Ashes activated her neural relay, connecting to Reaper and Ghost in less than a heartbeat. Ashes, we didn't bury them deep enough. Reaper, they're crawling back? Ghost, no. They're climbing back with strategy. Ashes narrowed her eyes. For the first time in years, a flicker of unease passed through her otherwise cold expression. They hadn't sent a squad of engineers. They hadn't sent a science vessel. The Galactic Council had sent the Iron 10, because only monsters could fight monsters. Inside a shattered bunker below ground, the remains of a harvester lay pinned to the wall by Reaper's pulse bayonet. But it wasn't the broken limbs or cracked carapace that disturbed him, it was the eyes. Organic, blinking, watching him. These bastards are integrating biology, Reaper growled. They're making themselves alive. Then we changed the kill order, Ghost replied coldly over comms. No more containment. No more mercy. Full purge. Ashes arrived moments later. Her armor was stained, claws scoring its flanks, one eye bruised where a harvester tendril had gotten too close. But her posture never changed. She stood like the earthborn god of death she was forged to be. Pull the Exodus 9 protocol, she said. Reaper paused. We'll level half the planet. We level the right half, Ashes replied. And we take the Queen's brain before she ever sees the stars. The harvesters had a queen now. They'd never had hierarchy before. That had been their weakness. Random violence, predictable patterns, no coordination. But now something led them. Something human-shaped, built from 100 consumed prisoners and spliced with stolen DNA from ancient Terran species. Ghost found the first image in a corrupted surveillance feed. A towering, insectoid creature with a vaguely humanoid face, covered in chitin and human scars. But it was the eyes that terrified her. They were familiar. Those are Yelani's eyes, she whispered. Ashes turned sharply. Yelani died during Vesta Siege. Or we thought she did. Reaper clenched his fists. Then this isn't just another extermination. No, Ashes said grimly. This is a rescue mission. The plan was madness. Drop into the nest center. Cut out the Queen. Burn everything else. Virex's core was unstable, sick with harvester tunnels and growths. The crust trembled every time one of them moved. One wrong fight and the planet would collapse into itself. But that was acceptable. Because Earth's oldest warriors didn't fear extinction, they were trained in it. The drop was silent. 3 shadows pierced the sky, diving into the guts of a living planet. Ashes hit the ground first, carving a crater with her knees. Reaper and Ghost followed, clearing the landing zone in seconds. Harvester drones screamed, and suddenly the cavern was full of claws and fire. Ashes ripped a drone in half with her bare hands, its acidic blood burning her palms. Reaper's Gauss rifle tore holes through thick armor, while Ghost slipped between shadows, slicing throats with monomolecular blades. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. And then came the Queen. They found her deeper than expected, suspended in a cathedral of bone and flesh, her wings twitching with the twitch of 1,000 nervous systems. She looked almost human, except for the teeth and the elongated spine, and the voice that echoed inside their skulls. Queen, Ashes. Reaper. Ghost. You've finally come home. Ashes, you're not Yelani. Queen, no. I'm what she became. What she was meant to be. Reaper raised his rifle. Then you're about to meet what we're meant to be. The Queen struck first. She moved like lightning, tearing through 3 tons of steel with a single limb. Reaper barely dodged in time. Ghost's cloak malfunctioned as the Queen's psychic scream overloaded every system. Ashes stepped forward. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She punched through the Queen's leg and shattered the knee joint. Ashes, you evolved. Ashes, so did we. They fought like gods in the depths of hell, 3 relics of human violence against the pinnacle of alien adaptation. The Queen was faster, stronger, smarter. But the Iron 10 didn't need to win. They just needed to hold long enough. Ghost activated the Exodus 9 device. A timer, 3 minutes. The entire nest would go up. Ashes and Reaper kept the Queen pinned while Ghost hacked into the neural relay growing from her spine, searching for any trace of Yelani. She found a whisper. A memory. Tell Earth I didn't run. It was enough. Ghost tore the relay free. Yelani's last flicker died. And the Queen screamed. Ashes drove her blade through the Queen's chest and screamed back, dragging her down into the pit just as the timer hit 0. The explosion cracked Virex Prime in half. Orbiting vessels saw the planet split like fruit, the core vomiting molten metal as the harvester nest was incinerated in atomic fire. A week later, only 2 signals were recovered. Reaper barely alive. Ghost unconscious. Ashes was never found. Or so the galaxy thought. In a secret chamber buried beneath the ruins of a forgotten moon, a stasis pod hissed softly. Inside, ashes floated, scarred, bloodied, but intact. Because monsters don't die. They wait. For the next war. The stasis pod cracked. Steam hissed from vents carved in a half-melted alloy, too advanced to be alien, too brutal to be civilized. Ashes took her first breath in what felt like centuries, but her mind hadn't slept. Her memories had looped endlessly through fire, through Yolani's whisper, through the last flash of light as Virex Prime tore itself apart. The moment of sacrifice. She'd felt the queen's spine snap under her grip. But death hadn't taken her. Something else had. Ashes, where the hell? A hologram flickered on. Voice ID, CENTCOM/Omega/Black Vault 14. Security status, Omnivore. Subject, E-Class Bioweapon Ashes. Recovery complete. A red glyph pulsed. Welcome back. The war is not over. Elsewhere, far from any known star lanes, a transmission reached Earth's orbital defense grid. It came coded in a dead language, pulsing with quantum encryption that hadn't been used since the fall of Nova Cygnus. Only one system still recognized it. Vault 9. The code translated to a single phrase. Send help. They adapted. Virex was a test. Then coordinates. And screams. Earth didn't call the Iron 10 anymore. Because there was no Iron 10. Not officially. Most were dead. Some missing. Ashes had been presumed lost. Reaper lived in a classified medical vault under Mars' crust. Ghost? No one had seen her since she activated the failsafe. But Earth heard the message. And it didn't respond with ambassadors. Or scientists. Or diplomats. It opened the black door. Ashes stepped out onto the deck of a stealth dreadnought that didn't exist on any registry. She looked older. Scarred in ways even her armor couldn't hide. But her eyes? They were worse than ever. Reaper waited at the console. His right arm was missing, replaced with something sharper. His gaze was quiet. Deadlier than before. Nice of you to wake up, he said, voice a broken rasp. Ghost tracking echoes across 5 systems. She thinks the queen was just a node. Ashes nodded. She was. I saw it before the blast. There were others, watching. Reaper's fingers danced across the console. Then we hunt. Their ship didn't jump through space. It bled into it. The dark coil drive folded time in unnatural ways, pulling reality like a wounded beast through the folds of a broken universe. It was banned technology. The kind Earth had buried, swearing never to use again. But Earth had always lied when it needed to. And when Ghost's signal finally locked, what they found wasn't a planet. It was a shell. A husk of something that had once been alive. Floating in the void, orbiting a rogue black hole, was a megastructure the size of Earth's moon, grown, not built. Alive. Twisting. And deep within it, Ghost's beacon blinked once. They docked in silence. Reaper loaded weapons that screamed when touched. Ashes rearmed with ancient blades forged from neutron star remnants. Every step they took echoed like gunshots in a cathedral of bone. And then, she appeared. Ghost. No longer cloaked. No longer whole. Half of her face was replaced with obsidian-like alloy, her eyes glowing red from harvester code spliced into her neurons. But her voice? Still hers. You're late. You're infected, Reaper said, leveling his rifle. Ashes put a hand on the barrel. No. She's the bridge. Ghost nodded. I let them in. I had to. To see. See what? Ghost pointed toward the center of the construct. The first war? It wasn't about conquest. It was about cloning. They weren't harvesting species. They were trying to build a new human. A better one. Because they thought the old ones were gone. Ashes growled. They were wrong. Ghost smiled with something inhuman behind her teeth. That's what I told them. And they panicked. The final chamber was an egg. A massive one. Suspended in a gravity net so tight it bent time. Inside floated the impossible. A being crafted from Ashes, Reaper, Ghost, and Yolani. Spliced, merged, hybridized into something not quite human, not quite alien. But still terrifying. It turned and opened its eyes. It recognized them. Mother, it whispered to Ashes. Father, to Reaper. Sister, to Ghost. And then it asked, why do I exist? Ashes didn't blink. To end what started us. And then she fired. The creature didn't die easy. It shattered its chamber, sending shockwaves through the construct. Gravity inverted. Time screamed. Ghost bled code. Reaper lost another arm. But Ashes? She kept moving. Kept killing. Kept teaching. Because Earth didn't raise soldiers. It forged weapons. And in that dying womb of stars and science, Ashes unleashed everything humanity had buried. The creature tried to speak, tried to beg. But there was no mercy left in the galaxy. Not anymore. Ash's final strike pierced its heart. And when the explosion came, it purified the void. They drifted for weeks in escape pods, surrounded by stardust and radiation. Ghost was nearly lost to neural burnout. Reaper flatlined twice. Ashes never spoke. Until Earth found them. Until Earth asked, "What did you find?" And she answered, voice hollow, "Our legacy. Our threat. Our shadow." And then she said the words that shook the council. "You wanted to send help. So you sent us. Now you can never unsend what we've become. If you made it this far, remember, the most dangerous humans ever born were never created in peace. They were born in silence. Raised in fire. Unleashed only when nightmares needed to be hunted down and erased. So if you're listening, don't look away. Because the Void Narratives is just getting started. Subscribe now, before the next threat decides to come looking for you.